Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ben, joined as always by our other host, Mr. Randy. Randy, I got to tell you, I am happy to be doing this pod. This is going to be a review of the spring game, and man, it was good to see some Florida football again after 5 months without it. Oh, I don't even like saying that. Um,
I know, right?
it was really good to see some Florida football, man. I got a big smile on my face when I turned the game on this weekend and just started watching, and man, it was refreshing. It was nice. I know it's just a spring game. I know it wasn't a real game, but just seeing them out there in pads and seeing the orange and blue get to suit them up and play a little bit, man, it was great. It was really nice to see, and kind of brought me back to why we do this, and really just really brought a nice smile to the face, and nice to be breaking this down and actually looking at some film again. So just wanted to share that thought, and before we get into this, and how you feeling tonight? How's your take doing? How's that voice?
The voice is good. We're in good shape. Everything's good. Thank you to Honey and Lemon. Does the voice well. But no, man, I echo those sentiments. On Saturday, so obviously, for those of you who don't know, we've had the orange and blue game on a Thursday night the past few seasons. It was switched back to a Saturday day. So it's Saturday. It was nice and warm. It was in the swamp. It was in the afternoon. So you just got the feels and the crowd participation compared to the past couple Thursday nights. It was the energy. Of course, it wasn't 92,000 full and 90,000 full, but the energy, a lot of the energy was there, and it just felt great. It felt familiar. It felt comfortable. You got excited again. So absolutely.
Did I hear something like 46,000 though? Is that right? Like, is that the number? I thought that's what I read somewhere.
That's a great question. I'm not sure it's exactly always what it seems, right? We don't know how the optics play out. And the number I heard was 44. Either way,
okay.
for 40-some thousand, that's appealing.
Yeah, that's a lot of people for a spring game. So definitely some reasons behind that. I know Florida Victorious did an autograph signing after the game that's getting a lot of positive feedback. I'm sure that brought a lot of folks out, which is really cool. I think that's a neat thing that they did. Really cool to have some player interaction, some stuff like that. But at any rate, just good things all around. Really, like we said, just nice to have some football back, even though we know it's just an oasis in the desert of the off season, but it's still nice to have. And now we're back to the drought yet again until we get to the end of August. But hey, we'll take what we can get, and that's okay. So as always, we will break down here with our intro, our mission and vision, and our agenda for what we're going to bring you this evening. And it's going to be back to kind of more traditional format this evening as what we do for a game, even though this wasn't a true game. We're going to treat it more or less as it was. So our mission, of course, as always, is to provide factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football. Our vision is to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on review of film. Yes, it will. And while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some form of fact. We will have evaluation of strategy and tactics, as well as observation of player personnel decisions and on-the-field execution. So for the agenda tonight, we will get back, as I mentioned, to more of our in-season formats. So we'll start with our "Oh My" section with our exciting plays from the game as we took our take on them, I should say. We'll then have our Chomp segment with a discussion around the offense. We'll then do Gator Bait and review the defensive side of the ball. We'll then have a visor throw segment, which unfortunately I'm sad to say, even though it was a spring game, we are going to have a couple visor throws, I think, but nothing too serious. We'll then do the hatchling segment where we'll talk a little about recruiting and what's going on that front, always important this time of year. We'll then do Pride of the Sunshine and talk about the culture around the team and what we saw going on in regards to that during this game, which is an interesting thing for the spring game, because I think, as we'll talk about with Napier and the way he handles this, I think culture becomes a really important piece in regards to the spring game for him. But we'll talk about more about that as to why we get there. We're then going to switch up this next section. Normally we would do our officiating review. Obviously no need to review officials in a spring game. because it didn't obviously matter to the outcome of the game. So instead, we're going to insert a section we're going to call Gators That Growled. So little play there for those that are familiar with Gator Growl. But we're going to talk about 5 players each that we thought really showed out in the game, and just have a brief discussion around what we thought was impressive about those performances. And then lastly, we'll do our wrap up, just kind of talk about where we think the team is based on what we saw and what we are looking forward to, and then do our sign off. So with that, let's get it started with the exciting plays in Oh My. So if you want to, sir, please take it away and give me your thoughts on the best plays you saw from the game.
I appreciate that, B. It's funny going back to the OG agenda format.
Indeed.
It's like riding a bicycle. All right, so I'm going to keep it brief. I had a lot on here, and call it what you want to call it. Orange and blue goggles, as we like to say on the broadcast, but I'll keep it as brief as I can. First things first, Ada Mizell's speed on kickoffs. If he could have busted, he would have been gone. Dare I say gone. All I'm going to say is Aiden Mizell, for those of you who don't know, in the 100 meters, best time 10.6. You know who also had a 10.6 100 meter? A guy by the name of Chris Rainey. Scary. Next one is Hawkins, because Hawkins also a speedster right there with him. Hawkins clocks in 100 meter at 10.4. Another guy that was right around that number, a little bit better, Jeffrey Demps, that name might ring a bell to some people in Gator Nation, at 10.04. So if Mizell and Hawkins get locked, especially on a kick, because they both fielded kicks, it'd be really neat to see if we can set them up for a lot of success in that special teams arena, which hopefully gets a nice overhaul this fall. Okay. Next one, I'm going to go to Pup Howard. He had a fantastic tackle on Montrell Johnson Jr. I tell you what, on Blue's first possession around the 38-yard line, it was a 3rd down play, and the way that Pup exploded and got to Johnson forced a 4th down. Yes, Blue converted the 4th down, but it was a fact of the explosion of what Pup did to fight through and get to Johnson to take him down in the first place. Really good to see. Really good to see. The other one that I would say is Lagway's first touchdown, the first touchdown pass in stride to Mizell. And I'll tell you what, Mizell, great route. But the other thing, if you didn't realize that, there were 3 defenders around. It was a very tight window. That ball had to be on the money, and it was. So that was that. My fourth, oh my, Jacoby Jackson. On Blue's 3rd possession, he had a 32-yard run, but more specifically, he probably could have been taken down 7-8 yards after he got into the run. Juke number 1. And then after another 12 to 13 yards, juke number 2. And that ended up in a 32-yard run, first down, looking very joysticky, very shifty. So I thought that was phenomenal. LJ McRae. He blew up a play for Orange on Blue's 8th possession, start of the 4th quarter. And the way that he jumped on the ball, love seeing, ball hawk. And what's interesting is a lot of coaches on the D-line say that, hey, you know what, this guy, say he's a freak. But as we know, when you use that adjective to describe a guy, you got to be careful. You got to be careful in the swamp with that nickname, right?
That's right.
Exactly. My next play is going to be the catch by Treyon Webb. With 20 seconds to go, turning around, he bobbled the ball, juggled it, caught it, and then conversely, the hit by Denson. Denson didn't take it easy on him. He strictly hit him and almost gave him the old pile driver, the old WWE finishing move. So I thought that was great. And the last thing I'm going to say is an oh my, Mertz to Wilson for the 60-yard bomb. So yeah, that was a good play. It was phenomenal. It was through the air raid. That's great. Okay, fun and gun. But I want to highlight 2 things in particular. Wilson's route running. Wilson at the break, when he came up downfield, he showed right and broke left. And for me, when he did that, it took me back. It took me back to a game last fall, Slick Rick against South Carolina with under a minute to go, that in and out that he did to catch that ball to put us up 40-37 on South Carolina with under a minute to go. If you listen to Trey and you listen to what he said, what coaches have said about him this offseason and how he's conducting business, he had a great great example in Pearsall, and Trey has just picked up all the pieces from what Pearsall had put down, and he is emulating it to a T. And if he can continue to do that, I mean, the route was absolutely phenomenal. He broke left, right, or showed right, broke left, and was gone. And like I said, as soon as I saw that, I said, wait, why does that look familiar? Slick Rick, almost to a T. So
Yep.
those are my plays for Oh My. Try to keep it as short as possible. And there we go, B. What do you got?
Hey man, pretty good, and I love it. And I like the LJ McCray blows up the play. I hope we get to say that a lot. That's a nice
Yeah.
little catchy jingle there. That's good. That's good. I'm gonna
Bingo.
keep that one hidden somewhere. We're gonna pull that out during the season, I hope. And hopefully future seasons to come too.
Right.
Good stuff. So absolutely. I got a few here. Think one the same for sure, but it might actually only be one that's the same. So
Oh,
that's kind of
wow.
interesting. Yeah, yeah.
I'll take it.
So my first one, I did this in time order. So my first one is actually going to be late in the first quarter. Jaden Ball, jump cut and gone. This
Oh,
kid looks like a bigger version, which is amazing because he's 18 years old, but a bigger version of Shady McCoy back there to me. I'm not scared to make that comparison one bit. His jump cut ability and then immediate change of direction and immediate acceleration is eerily reminiscent of Shady back there to me. For those who are not familiar, that is LaShawn McCoy, who played in the NFL for several years, was a dynamite running back, really successful. But I am very impressed with Jaden Baugh. I think a lot of people came away with that impression from the game, but man, he put that on display multiple different times. He is incredibly elusive despite being 6 foot tall and
oh yeah.
240 pounds. No small feat to bring him down. But on top of it, he's elusive in his running. Are you kidding me? That's scary, promising future for that kid. What a pickup. What a amazingly good job of recruiting to get him into the fold. And if you recall, that was a last minute flip that we pulled off in getting him because he was
Bingo.
committed to, I believe, Arkansas, and we switched him on. That was a flip on signing day. So
Yes,
I
sir.
could be wrong about where he was committed, but regardless, that was a really nice flip. So um really impressive stuff with him, and we'll talk more about that later too. My next one was Manny Nunnery. Not going to talk about that anymore. For those that don't know, he hit the portal today and then had some very insulting things to say about the coaching staff. So bye. Moving on. Tricky Trey. Tricky Trey to the house at the end of the second. And I'm with you. I loved the route running. It was perfection. I loved the speed that he put on display, splitting the corner and the safety. I think Bridges was ill prepared for that. I would have liked to seen Castell out there to see if he could have defended that a little better, quite frankly, because we know he's a bit better in pass coverage from the safety spot. But obviously he was hurt and couldn't play in this game. This was one of the very few times Sharif Denson got beat, but he did get beat. And it is what it is. Sometimes that happens. And hey, you're going against what I think is going to end up being one of the better receivers in the entire country, quite frankly. Trey Wilson's a real deal. And then I love the throw. Mertz hitting that throw in stride about 35 yards in the air downfield, and he didn't have to miss a step. One of the knocks I would have on Mertz is that his deeper balls last year were not necessarily as accurate as they need to be. Boy, this one was on the money.
Yes,
And that
sir.
is why that ended up going for the 6. So really impressive play. Absolutely, probably the best OMI of the game. Though this next one definitely deserves honorable mention, even though the result might not have been impressive. And it was the Mertz throw to Khalil Jackson in the third quarter. First of
Ah,
all, really good coverage from Pup Howard on a wide receiver. Are you kidding me? This Pup Howard kid's going to be good. I'm excited to have him. He had excellent coverage on Khalil Jackson, number one. But Mertz put a ball over the top that was an absolute dime. And then Jackson deserves credit too because he adjusted his route for the throw because Mertz had to put a little extra air under it. He takes a step off of the line of the pattern, adjusts to the throw so that he can catch it in stride and take it for 50 yards. That's what I'm talking about. One of the things that Khalil had struggled with was not being able to get much yak, right? Not much yards after the catch. Boy, he did a much better job on that play. I want to see more of that next year, or this year, I guess I should say.
Right.
Last one I have is the Sharif Denson pick. Now, it's not the best choice of throws by Mertz. He kind of locked in on the receiver, threw it in a tight window, but still, it was one-on-one coverage. Denson really had it played tight. And when Mertz made that throw, he just wanted the ball more when it was in the air. I mean, it was not like he was, throwing it right to Sharif or something. I mean, Shamir was open, more or less, not open. I mean, he had coverage, but the coverage was technically behind him, and Sharif just took it away. Came right up over the back of the receiver, but not in a way that was interference, and just took the ball away from him. That's how you defend. That was outstanding. I really liked seeing that. That's the kind of ball hawk mentality that this defense needed more of last year and didn't have. And man, I saw a lot of it during this game, even though that may have been one of the only picks, aside from, of course, the other one from a linebacker that we're not going to talk about anymore. But there were also several pass breakups that were really nice. And again, we'll talk more about that as we get into the rest of the review. So having said that, those are my oh my's. Really some good plays from this game, some solid plays from this game. And important to remember that when you had the blue team versus the orange team, that was the ones versus the ones. Right. We weren't sure what we were going to get when the way they were talking about the way they were picking teams and everything else, but we ended up with the ones versus the ones. And that's really important because you got to see the good on good, right? And man, we really saw some good examples of that. So some really good stuff out there. Meaning the blue offense versus the orange defense. I don't think I specified that because it was always blue versus orange, but blue offense versus orange defense. Sorry, should have specified. All right, so moving on, let's talk about some offense. And what we saw. First thing I'm going to call out is there was much better pass protection in this game. Now, Napier does not, as we're going to discuss more, have the defense play soft in these games. A lot of spring games, it's an offensive exhibition, right? The defense just kind of sits out there and messes around and doesn't really do anything. That is not the case in the Florida spring game since Napier has been there. They get after it from a rush standpoint. Last year, they blitzed about 25 times. That didn't happen this year. There were some blitzes, but not near as many. But the O-line proved to be much better this year in pass protection than what we saw last year. Now, the run blocking left a little to be desired with the first team. That's another point we can talk about. But the pass protection was much better. Mertz was not feeling a ton of heat right away as soon as he took the snap. Now, there were times where Searcy got the edge or Sapp got the edge and he was under pressure, and that's okay. That's what those guys are supposed to do. But it wasn't happening every play. It wasn't happening all the time. There wasn't constant pressure up the middle. Right? There was a decent pocket a lot of the time for Mertz to throw out of. And that was really important because, man, as we all know, pass protection last year, woof, it was rough. It was really, really rough. And so it was really good to see some improvement there, despite the defense, getting after it, as we said. So that was my first takeaway for offense. We saw more downfield passing from Mertz. And maybe more importantly, as I kind of called out with that throw to Khalil, the intermediate range of the field, which I think is not only good to see, but perhaps, like I said, most important. Based on the film from last year, when you looked at what was actually open in the concepts that we were running, as we have much maligned in those concepts, the intermediate range is actually where I think we can probably find the most opportunity during this season, assuming that we do not get a full conceptual overhaul. Well, we're not going to get a full conceptual overhaul, but assuming we don't add more wrinkles to the passing game, which please, Russ, please, Mr. Callaway, add some wrinkles. We'll get to that later. But we weren't going to see that in the spring game, nor should we have. However, if we don't add wrinkles, even if there aren't any real changes to those routes for the most part, the intermediate part of the field, right, that kind of 10 to 17-yard range downfield, maybe 8 to 17-yard range downfield, is really where the opportunities, I think, lie in this offense to probably complete the most passes consistently that are going to be open. I know we all want the downfield shots. I know we all want the bombs like the one we had to trade, but let's get honest. The way we run routes, the way the concepts are in the passing game in this offense, they're just not open that often. If they are, heck yeah, go for them, hit them when you can. But realistically, those shots just aren't there that frequently to be taken. The receivers aren't open that often. They weren't open in this game that often, FYI, because guess what we were doing? running a go, running a drag underneath, and running a guy in the flat for the check down all the time. Saw it over and over and over again. Get to it later. But the point being is the intermediate section of the field is where we saw guys open. Trey was open there repeatedly, and he hit him repeatedly in that area of the field. Khalil Jackson was open there repeatedly, and he hit him there repeatedly. So this is the point that I want to emphasize here, is that I think there's really an opportunity for, especially when we're in 11 personnel, 1 tight end, 3 receivers, and we're running at least 3 downfield routes, not 2, right? Because then you get into that situation I just said, right? The go, the crossing, and then the check down. But we have at least 3 downfield routes. There should be an intermediate route that at least has man-to-man coverage at a minimum, but hopefully they can get some separation and you get an open player in that intermediate range of the field. And I think that's where we have as much opportunity to capitalize as anything, just kind of looking at what we saw from this game, assuming, again, that we don't get any kind of tweaks or changes, which, again, hopefully we do, but hope for the best, plan for the worst, right? So there you go. Moving on, talk a little bit about the running game. Johnson and Webb, frankly, they looked average, but I think that's more about the offensive line than it is about them. But the defense also did a really good job with containment on them. And I'm actually going to say that it is a little hard to tell if that was more good D-line and linebacker play or poor O-line blocking. But when you look really closely at the film, I broke down a couple of plays really, really in depth. I believe I have to give a little more credit to the defense for this than blaming the O-line too much. Now, was the O-line executing at a super high level? No, but they weren't missing blocks. They didn't blow blocks. It's not like they whiffed on their guy. What I would say is that there were times where the defense just overpowered them in cases, and that is a credit to the defense. Now, it also could be a indictment on the offensive line's strength at times, but in a lot of cases, they were getting push. It was just one player, Searcy often, Pup often, that was coming in there and blowing up the play. Now, that'll happen if you have a player that is doing the right things. It is coached well, is filling the right gaps. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Right? These are the things we want to be seeing defensively, which is a good thing. And then on top of it, they have a lot of strength and athleticism to be able to do that. Now, we're going to face teams that can do those things, understandably. And so these O linemen have got to be ready for that. And I would agree with that statement. However, at the same time, it's not like they were doing anything fundamentally deficient. It's just a question of, can we continue to make sure that they are keeping those fundamentals and also continuing the strength and conditioning to get stronger for the rest of the offseason, right? And hopefully they are. So, Mr. Miles, you got a little more work cut out for you, I think, but overall, we're headed in the right direction there. As far as other thoughts on running back, I would have loved to see Baugh actually get some time against the first team defense because he was so impressive against the second team. I really wanted to see him against the first team defense to see, is he really that good? Because I think he might be. He was the most impressive back on the field by far. Last thing is Mertz, as I mentioned, he did lock in on a few throws, including that pick. That does need to change for the season. That's not something he really did a lot last year. Like, he was pretty good at looking off safeties and working through progressions. I saw him lock in on a few throws during this game. I don't know if that's because he was trying to make a conscious effort to throw the ball further down the field, but that's something I'm a little skeptical about. I know we're trying to get the ball downfield more, but we got to be careful what we wish for if that's what we're going to get. So that was a little bit concerning. I hope it's just him working through this progression of trying to find those calculated risks. And as he becomes more comfortable with that, and that fits more into his progression, we won't see that as much. Fingers crossed, because if we do, I'm very worried that INT count not only goes up, but goes up to the point that we start having concerns about it. I'm not saying that happens, but it gave me pause. So hate closing on a little bit of a negative note there, but I got to be honest about what we're seeing, right? That's the name of the game. So that's what I got for offense. Where are you at with it?
For sure, B. For sure. Good stuff. Good stuff. Johnson, Webb, Baugh, Jackson. That's a heck of a running back core. Trevor, who? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
My man. My man.
I don't mean to be sour. I don't mean to be sour, but I gotta say.
Why not? Why not? He was.
I know, and I'm not trying to be petty, but at the end of the day, it's funny. A lot of the commentary that I heard on Ball coming in was he's a bigger back, right? Not as big as Derrick Henry, but still a bigger back. And it makes sense because in high school, he played linebacker and safety. So the kid can hit, but not to mention, especially in this position, he was laying that shoulder and he has no problem running north at all.
No,
Clearly.
No, he does not.
Right. So if that's the four-headed, or you want to call it that, the four-headed monster that we have at running back, it's almost like a step and repeat. Just, okay, whichever one you want to throw in, just be my guest. I feel like we have weapons galore. So that was great to see. I agree with you, though. I agree. Wanted to see him take some reps against first-team defense, but either way, if he's going to be that shifty, if he's going to be that strong and run upright with determination and power, holy smokes. And we haven't mentioned the other running back coming back from injury, Cam Carroll, who looked like a human joystick last spring game, but that was what it was. Okay, fine. I digress. The O-line stayed relatively set, right? No procedural penalties. No high snaps. I want to say last spring game we had 7 or 8 high snaps.
Oh yeah, we did.
I know different line, different scenario, but either way, the O-line stayed relatively set. I agree with you.
There was one false start, but I think it was on the second team. I think it was on Orange. So
that's correct.
I don't think there was anything on the first team, to your point. So yeah, very good. Good
awesome
call.
Yeah, that is correct. And that's the other thing too. I agree that is it better O-line? Is it worse D-line? It's really hard to tell. But either way, from what we saw, from the continuity that Slaughter tried to create up front, and from talking to those guys in the huddle, that should yield good results. Okay, it's really hard to fully assess the plays, right? Here's a slant route, here's a go route, here's a cross, but at the end of the day, and not that they would put it on film, right, Russ's involvement, but either way, even if we don't get the overhaul, I'd be really curious to see what Russ throws in, what little nuggets or cogs he puts into the wheel to redo some things, and then try and figure out what that looks like from a long-term perspective. Because as we do this more and more, as he gets more familiar with the system and he and Billy get more familiar with each other, not that they already are, I'm really liking to see where this progression is going into the fold, because I don't think people realize we have weapons. We have legitimate weapons. So it's going to be great to see them get used. Good to see Lagway and Mertz get settled in. Mertz, like we talked about, second year in the system. He's the seasoned guy. He made a comment in on the podium a couple weeks ago about just swimming. When he came to Gainesville last year, he was swimming. He was just trying to stay afloat. But guess what? He's not swimming anymore. He's floating. He is doing what he needs to cut through the water in the best way possible, not trying to stay afloat, and really neat to see the mentorship to Lagway. I really enjoyed the fact that, especially on the first play of the game and Orange had the football, GJ was rolling out and going long. Hey, look at that. Khalil Jackson. I know he's a legacy player. I know we've had there's some people who've had their qualms with Khalil, but guess what? He's shown he's worked on his hands and he can catch the football, and great call out on that earlier, but yak. He's strong, he's big, he's physical, he's tough. We need to utilize him as best we can. At the end of the day, Mertz finished a pedestrian 15 for 27, 243 yards, an interception and a touchdown. Lagway 12 for 21, 173 yards, an interception, 2 touchdowns. But the one thing that I love about DJ and his posture, I know people criticize the throwing motion, whatever. You can't knock this. He forces defenses to prepare differently with the RPO, with the optionality.
No question. And I don't want to hear about throwing motion. They question Tebow's throwing motion too. I think he was okay.
I think he was okay too, B. I really do.
Yeah.
I really do. Speaking of which, my intro for DJ moving forward is going to be, hey, Mr. DJ. Okay, I'll leave that. Sorry, people. Sorry for those of you who had to listen to it. That's the shower voice.
Go DJ. That's my DJ.
Okay, we'll take that one too. Next up, Jaden Baugh. For people who don't realize, Jaden Baugh averaged 14 yards a carry his senior year in high school. In a spring game, he averages close to 7. So if he's going to be as explosive as we saw this little snapshot of, again, another weapon.
Yeah,
Speaking
I
of,
want to see I want to see him get some playing time. Like I know he's not going to be first or second string, and nor probably should he be. But man, I want to see him see
yeah,
the
yeah,
field in like semi meaningful minutes in the fall, like at least against hopefully Miami when we're up 20. Sorry,
he needs a package or two. He needs a package player too. Yes, he does. He
he
does.
does.
Next
He's too
one.
good. He's too good.
Yeah, next one, Jacoby Jackson, 5 carries on 60 yards. I get it's a spring game, but still, these boys are out there trying to prove a point, right? Trey Wilson, the aforementioned, 8 catches, 160 yards, and a touchdown, right? Blue, pretty even.
128, but yes.
I guess it was 160 total after the difference, but Blue, 327 yards of offense. Orange, 321 yards of offense. Blue, 82 rushing yards. Orange, 129 rushing yards. So, okay. Here's the thing, and I'm going to leave with this. The offense, it just felt differently. Mertz with his cadence, but also it's really good to see Lagway come in there. But Lagway also with his cadence. Lagway also have a really good command. And not to mention the procedural. I get it. The fourth quarter when things got tight under 4 minutes, that was his first procedural penalty in a delay of game. That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
No, super, super good point. That's something I was going to bring up later when we do our call outs. But yes, extremely good point for his time or lack thereof in the system with the school at this level. Take your pick. Command of the offense of the team, leadership, the whole nine. Highest marks I could give considering the time invested, and really pretty decently high marks, even if we didn't have that as a grading curve, right? I mean, yeah, really good stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. No, you're good, man. And but at the end of the day, I think people are saying, okay, well, Ricky's gone and Trevor's gone, and what do we do? Oh my gosh, like we have weapons, people. There are legitimate weapons on offense. So I think right now the biggest issue that I think Billy and Russ might have is making sure all these guys get touches and you utilize them in the most effective and efficient way possible. That's all I got on offense.
No, I agree. Just a closing thought there. I'm with you, and we did lose talent there, especially in the receiver room. And I do think it's worth looking at adding some more in this spring transfer window if we can. If it's the right guy, right, and the right fit, and if it's doable. I absolutely think that's worth looking into. But to your point, it's not like we're devoid of weapons. Not at all. We're especially not devoid of speed, right? But like look at Marcus Burke. He had a good spring game last year and then kind of died on the vine during the season. He might have had a better spring game this year. So I'd be interested to see how that goes. He shows promise. Him and Kajak, man, they got some size. So one of the things we kind of talked about was we got all this speed. Do we have enough size? Those guys play well. Yes, we do have enough size. They're both. I think Burke's 6'4", Kajak's 6'3". Right. We're good. If those guys can play well enough, we got plenty of size. So even if we can't land a transfer that's going to be somebody that can come in and play and potentially start or at least be in the rotation or whatever else, I'll tell you, man, I'm absolutely thinking that what we have is at least certainly serviceable, if not, above that. And then you factor in the speed of some of these other guys. We're not ill-equipped. It is a position room where we are certainly not, as deep or as talented as we are at other areas, certainly.
Sure.
But I think it's getting a lot of hype, like, oh, we just have to have another one. Well, it'd be nice, but I don't think it's something where it's like an absolute mandatory situation. If the right guy comes along and he's a good fit and he's willing to transfer, sure, it would not hurt. But I don't think it's a situation where it's an absolute mandatory situation that we have to have. Not at all. So anyway, moving on. Let's talk defense. Gator Bait, give me what you got.
Yeah, man. Defense, I'm going to keep this as brief as I can, but tackling looked vastly improved. Vastly improved. And I know what we say. I think we should say it just as one disclaimer and be done with it. It is a spring game, but
That's
again,
right.
there's a lot at stake in the spring game. There's a lot of pride on the line. There
Yep.
was a really nice steak dinner and some J's on the line. Listen, people do some things for some J's. I know I would.
That's right.
So I'm gonna go out there and get the damn ball, okay? But
Yep.
tackling from that perspective, especially what we've heard of what Chapman is doing, what Gerald's doing to these players, the intensity he's coaching with, Will Harris, the intensity he's coaching with, the
We know
urgency.
he's going to get guys tackling. He's having them tackle him.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And here's the thing: we've seen this issue in the past of, the famous quote of, well, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't show up. And we've got some talent. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure it could be better, but at the end of the day, now if we just apply that blue collar type work to it that Spurrier talked about back in the days, a lot of great things are going to happen. So tackling vastly improved. The overall intensity and the positioning look good, much, much better than last spring. I'll say that. When you look at the defenders, and again, disclaimer, spring game, but I love the fact that they were stride for stride wide receivers. And
Yep.
the movement that Denson had was phenomenal. Okay.
Agreed.
Edge play, edge play, edge play, edge play, edge
Yes,
play,
sir.
edge play, even without Justice Boone, who I'm so eager to see come back this fall.
Yes, sir.
Edge play was back, and it looked great. Blue had 6 sacks. Orange had 2 sacks, right? Quincy Ivory and Gums, a sack and a half each. It should have been 2 sacks each, by the way, but one was negated. But a sack and a half each. They were a menace, and they were active, and they were ball hawks. And it, again, sorry, I'm trying to temper my enthusiasm here, people, but it was just really refreshing to see. It really was. 2 picks in the game, 1 for the aforementioned name we're not going to mention. 2 picks that we had 3 all fall. All last fall, we had 3 picks. We had 2 in the spring game? Come on.
Yeah. Well said. I mean, it's a valid point. It's a valid point.
Right? And that's the thing. Mertz had 3 all season. And people can say, oh, well, Mertz only threw short. He threw this. He threw pop. He threw screens. The fact of the matter was he still threw the ball, and he still averaged almost 75% completion percentage. So for 3 picks, in lieu of almost 20 touchdowns, 22 touchdowns, hey, I'll take it. And the other thing that I will say, this D-line, if it comes together, if things go the way that we'd hope that it would, with all of the new additions, transfer portal, and the new class come in, it is going to look so dynamic. Dez dropped another 8, 10, 12, 13 pounds. So stamina is up there. He can stay in for more than 3-4 plays at a time. That's a big body. That's a familiar body, takes up a lot of space. And so when you look at that and what it's going to do to the rotation, keeping bodies fresh, we're stronger, we're better, we're longer, we're leaner, but we can also rotate. And as we know, AA likes to rotate. We'll see what Big Papa Ron has to say about that as far as his overall scheme. But at the end of the day, we did rotate a lot of bodies last season. Will that continue this fall? Don't know. But if we do, it seems like the personnel is there. So love that fact. Asa Turner.
Yes.
Put this into perspective.
Yes.
Put this into perspective. He batted 3 balls. Good in coverage. But just put this into perspective. You have someone who played in the national championship game 3 months ago, the biggest stage in college football.
Yep.
I thought that was huge. Secondly, so first is perspective. Second is experience, because we talk about some of the young guys, all of the talents there, the experience might not be. For the positioning, the gaps, the holes, the angles, no problem. But if for those of you who don't know, who was his coach at Washington 3 seasons ago?
Will Harris.
Will Harris, all B. So we have some familiarity. We have 2 degrees of separation of Kevin Bacon. I love what's happening. Again, trying to do my best without orange and blue goggles, but it's like a terrible Celine Dion song. It's all coming back to me. And if all this stuff comes together the way that we hope it comes together and the way that we envision it coming together, we're going to have, and not just have the execution that we want to see, but it's going to be fun. We're going to have a great time out there. Those guys are going to fly around. And you know my call will be, especially on defense, we want ball hawks. We want dogs. We want guys to fly around freely and make plays and organize chaos. And I hope that this happens with this crew.
Absolutely. We may not want dogs though. We may want pups.
Ha! Fair. Fair.
No, I got you. I got you. No, good stuff, man. I like it. I love the passion, and that's what's so great about getting back to this, right? Is it
Yeah.
gives us some of that passion back to be able to see that on the field and get excited about it, right? And be enthusiastic with it, and have some real. I don't want to just say hope for this next season, but excitement about this next season. Listen, we know it's not going to be the greatest season Florida's ever had. It's not. Let's get real. We've seen the
Yeah.
schedule. But at the end of the day, it could still be a really cool season and it still has promise. And this team does show some things right now that are interesting. They also show a couple things that I still have concerns about, but they show some things that are exciting. And it's going to be interesting to see how some of that stuff comes together. So for my review on defense, so we did a write-up of this game last year. We didn't record it. It was kind of our test episode to get this whole thing off the ground and running. And I wrote in the write-up, I went back and looked at it for this game last year. The defense showed promise, or the improvements, I guess, that the defense showed promise. And I think that was true, despite the statistical performance. We talked all about that. I won't get into all that again. However, it's a spring game. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself because, and I wrote that last year too, you can't evaluate everything that you see in a spring game and think that it's just going to translate, right? It doesn't. It's still a spring game at the end of the day. Now, again, as we talked about, Napier kind of has these guys try to take it more seriously than just some other scrimmage or practice or spring games for other teams where, like we talked about, it's an exhibition. It's not like that. It's a much more real game feel for these players, but they're still playing against their own teammates. They know some things about the playbook. Obviously, they've seen this stuff in practice. They know how this stuff works. So you can't get a full feel of what it really looks like. But having said that, to your point, tackling, it was improved. There's no question. It was better. Coverage, it was improved. It was better. There were things that you just see that do translate. There are things that translate from that are going to translate no matter who you're playing and when you are playing in a real game. So that was good to see. Standout of the game for me on defense was Pup Howard. He was filling gaps correctly the entire game. He was making tackles on running play after running play. And when he was in coverage, as I already mentioned, he was stuck very well to his man, even when it was a wide receiver. Thank you. A linebacker that can cover a wideout. Are you kidding me? We haven't had that in forever. So that is just phenomenal. So Pup Howard, can't sing his praises enough from this game. I'll have him called out again later on in the Gators that Growl section. Free preview on that. Moving along. Speaking of coverage, the secondary was doing a great job as well, as I already mentioned, and as you did as well. With the one exception to that being that long TD to Trey. That's the only exception I saw that I would call a coverage breakdown, right? That was really the only one where we had a blown coverage. Everything else was tight. We were up on the receivers. We were running stride for stride. There was play after play where our base level go route and crossing route concepts were just not open at all. Not shockingly surprising because they're not the greatest route concepts in the world, but nonetheless, they were covered, and that's good to see. So I will say that I do question a little bit because that communication breakdown, yes, it was a great route by Trey, but not communication breakdown, the coverage breakdown. I do question a little bit. If you noticed, we ran up tempo on that play, and this offense doesn't really run up tempo, ever. We ran very up tempo on that play when Trey got open. And one of the things that our defense has struggled with historically is up tempo offenses. Is that because our defense, or excuse me, is that because our offense never runs it in practice and we just don't ever get exposed to it? I mean, I'm sure they put a scout team out on weeks that we, go up against up-tempo teams and give the defense some practice against it. But is that enough when they just don't see it week in and week out through the whole spring, through the whole fall, and then 1 week in prep, they get a scout team doing it? Is it not enough? Is that why we're bad against it? The thought occurs to me. Because we just never run up tempo. We're actually one of the slowest tempo teams from like a normal play call standpoint in like all of college football. So is that maybe why we struggle? Just a thought. I don't know. You called it out. D-line looked really good despite not having Boone in the lineup. Sapp, Searcy, McCray all looked really good at edge. Brinsley's just not going to be missed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, good. Wish you well. Actually, really don't care. But sorry, don't. I would have wished him well for the record. I didn't hold any ill will against him or Trevor. Didn't like where Trevor went, obviously, but didn't hold any ill will. And then they opened their mouths. So now you're on my bad side. You're gonna talk smack about this program and the opportunity it gave you. Now you're gonna get wrath. So good luck. And by that, I mean bad luck. So moving along. It was also good to see the edge guys getting home without a bunch of blitzes. So as I mentioned, in last year's spring game, we ran about 2,500 blitzes. It seemed like we were blitzing every play in the last spring game. It was overkill. It was too much. It was actually one of my visor throws when we did this write-up last year. Obviously, as I said, we didn't record, but it was a visor throw for me that we ran way too many blitzes. We did not do that this year. That's good. We didn't overkill the blitz packages. Good, because it was too much last year. Austin was trying to figure out his thing, Double A trying to figure out how to run, every blitz package he wanted to run. We did run a blitz or two, but it was much more reserved. And what you saw was the front four getting home, not necessarily for a sack, but they were getting some pressures from time to time. It wasn't every play. Good. It shouldn't be. The O-line needs to do their job. But at the same time, they were getting home occasionally. And that's a good thing. We were getting some pressure out of the front four, here and there. Good. That's something that needs to happen as well. It's tough in a spring game, right? Because it's like, oh, well, if your front four get home, then is your O-line suck or are they just good? You never know, right? But I think it was a nice balance of sometimes they did a great job blocking and they couldn't get there, and other times they got around their man. And frankly, that's what you want to see. Sometimes the O-line wins, sometimes the D-line wins. That's good on good, right? That's how it should be. So I liked what I saw there. I thought it was a good balance. And again, to your point, I thought the D-line actually had a really good game. There's a lot of people saying they thought the D-line didn't really necessarily do that well. That's not what I saw. I thought they played very well. Searcy especially, and Sapp, quite good. And McCray had his moments later in the game for sure. But Searcy and Sapp showed out. I'm not sure which one I liked better. I think I'll go with Searcy because he had a couple of plays where he did get blocked and still blew the play up. That's impressive. That kid has really done some work in the offseason. He's got a that's going to be a name we're saying a lot next year. TJ is looking good.
Yes.
Last thing I'll say, seeing the defense play this well, even without Boone or Shamar, was a welcome sight. But again, I'm not going to get ahead of myself. It's only the spring game. So leave it on that note. Moving on, visor throw. I only have 3. I'll keep it short and sweet. It's not going to get too dirty. Yeah, only 3. It's not going to get too dirty, and only one of them am I really that mad about. First things first, flea flicker in the spring game, and not only a flea flicker, but it's the same terrible play call that you ran last year that got dumped for like a 30-yard loss. No, get it out of the playbook, take it away, tear the page out, put it in a shredder, burn the shreds, and take the ashes to a environmentally safe dumping ground and throw them away. Get it out. So I said I was only going to get that mad about 1, but maybe it's 2. I don't want to see that play ever called again in Florida football. It is a terrible play call. It doesn't work. And why the heck are you calling it in the spring game?
Oh, boy.
Give me a break. Done. Moving on. Okay, next. Despite some of the passing success we saw, I've already made mention of this, very similar route combinations to what we used during the season and what we're used to seeing from Napier's offense. Now, not going to throw the book at that because even if there are going to be changes, I wouldn't want him to be put on film in the spring, right? We don't want to give our hand away. Napier made a poker reference about Lagway, right, a couple weeks ago in talking, and this would be like you showing all your cards to the whole table and then going all in if you were to show your new plays in the playbook in the spring game, right? You wouldn't do it. So I'm not mad. However, I'm still going to hold out hope that Russ Callaway's influence is going to at least get us some variations at the very least, right? At the very least, hopefully, to the plays, to the passing game plays, because the running game plays are great, but the passing game plays need to hopefully get a little less, as you like to say, vanilla. So here's hoping that happens. Certainly didn't see it in this game, but again, wouldn't really want to. So here's the last one. You had 10 men on the damn field for a field goal once again. This is the last time that I'm going to allow this to be just bad optics or an acceptable, it never was really acceptable, but something that we can excuse. Starting August 31st in the swamp, the teeth are going to come out on this one, along with any other procedural miscue that is happening. There is no longer any space in this program under Napier in his third damn year for crap like this. It has to be over from here on out, period. And if it's not, you're going to hear me get real visceral on this pod. I'm out of patience for it. This was it. This is the last pass. And it's not really a pass because it's obviously I'm getting a visor throw about it, but it's the last time that I'm not going to lose my ever-loving mind if we do some dumb crap like this in a game. So with that, I'll close the book. Like I said, it's not too dirty. Got a couple of stains, but it's going to be easy to clean. So that's what I got for visor throw. Where you at?
I know you said it wasn't that, but man, holy smokes, calm down there. But I'm worried about your blood pressure.
You'll be worried about it next year if we put 10 men on the field for a field goal, or if we have 2 number 3s on the field, or if we can't get a kickoff coverage right. Then you can worry about it, because stuff like that. And it's not just special teams. In fairness, if we have, you know, stupid alignment penalties for an offsides or a false start, that kind of stuff, I'm going to lose it, because it just can't happen. And that's what I'm talking about is it just can't happen. So then you'll see my blood pressure get up. I'm not that mad right now. I will be.
Okay. Fair. On my visor throw, I've got a few points. Believe it or not, I literally have first titled the razzle dazzle that changed the tone of the Florida Georgia game.
Yep. There you go.
That's what we saw. And it was executed so poorly. The spacing was terrible. Defense was like, what? Blew it up really quickly. And just like in basketball.
It's just a bad play. You don't run the reverse 2 feet from the quarterback to then throw it back to the quarterback. It's a bad play. The design doesn't work. The design doesn't work.
That play works with proper spacing and anyways, we won't get into it, but yes.
Yeah, correct. Maybe. I would agree with you. If the handoff to the back that then gets thrown back to the quarterback happens, I don't know, 5 yards from the quarterback, okay, maybe it works.
At least 5 to 7 yards, yeah.
Yeah, we've never executed it that way though. So
Correct. Because, you're like, oh, we got a trick play, and you get all excited, and, and then it all goes to beep real quick. So anyways, there's that. My next visor throw, and I realize we don't want to, we're Napier's playing chess, not checkers, but I still see a lot of vanilla ice cream out there. No vanilla bean, no Neapolitan, no chocolate, no strawberry. That is what it is. Next up, Hunter Smith. My heart goes out to the kid, but at the same time, it doesn't. It reminds me of what Jack Miller did last year in the spring game. Laid an egg. Missed from 24, 38. Now, 52 I can understand, but 24 and 38, right side, right hash, hook, partial hook, and partial hook to the upright. Hunter, I'm sure you're a great kid, but come on, dude. Seriously, Trace Mack, do not get hurt. Protect the hamstrings, the calves, the legs, the hips. You know what? Just don't get hurt. Okay, fine. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? I'm probably dating myself. That computer game or cartoon, whatever the heck it was. But where in the world was Arliss Boardingham outside of the last drive of the game? Okay, that's all. And then to that end, outside of that, the injuries. Cam went down for a little bit. Glad to see him get up and get himself off the field.
Yes.
It was 1 week, no biggie. But here's the thing: if people don't realize the depth, and when we say by the depth that we now have that we did not have previously, look at some of the people that did not play due to injury: Cam Carroll, Andy Jean, Justice Boone, Shamar James, Jordan Castell, Austin Barber, Miles Graham, Cameron Waits. I mean, there's another list of 4 or 5 on
Yep.
there that
But
did not.
those are all guys that'll likely see the field in the fall that you just listed. Well, maybe not
Bingo.
Cam Carroll. Cam Carroll may not because it's not sure how he's going to come back. But
Sure.
everybody else you just said will see the field in the fall for sure, and at least 4, probably 5 of them are starters. So that's
Bingo.
significant. That's significant. And this team still looked deep without them. So very good point. Very good point.
Yeah. We do look deep, and we have, it's like a boxer, right? You can have two boxers going up against each other. You got a guy 6'1", 205. You got a guy 6'2", 211, but one has a 57-inch reach, one has a 64-inch reach. That 64-inch reach is going to do a lot more damage. And so when you look at the depth and the length and some of the years that we have experience that have come back and that we've gotten through the portal, that again typically will yield good things when executed properly. And then outside of that, Trey Smack's in midseason form, 31, 37, 38, and 39-yard field goals. I just hope that doesn't mean that our offense stalls close to the red zone and or in the red zone to where Trey Smack is kicking 37 field goals in the fall. I just want to make sure.
I hear you there, but I'm going to attribute that to the defense first, and then secondly, the lack of variation in the playbook that hopefully we again see diversify in the fall. And even if it's only Napier's diversification of it, yes. I hope we see that still happen. So, yeah, but hey, regardless, heck of a performance from him. I mean, 4 for 4. You know, granted they were all in the 30 range, but still 4 for 4. It is what it is. We got a solid kicker, man.
We do. And I know he had a shaky end of the year, but still consensus top 6 kicker in the nation last year by field goal percentage, and not to mention second year in a row he walks off the spring game. That's kind of special for the kid. So that's all I got on visor throw.
Well, yeah, and that's not even a visor throw, but
no,
but I get you. Correct. I get you. All right, moving on. Hatchlings recruiting. What do you got? Talk to me.
Yeah, no, I think right now, based off everything I read, correct me if I'm wrong, we got 5 solid commits. Right now, it looks like we're at number 17 in the country, something of that in that nature for 25. A couple of ones, the big ones that were there this weekend. 4-star Jalen Riggins, another edge coming out of Tallahassee, just north of Gainesville there. Another 4-star Peyton Joseph, interior offensive lineman coming out of Georgia, particularly Warner Robins. More specifically, the Buckies exit. We all like Buckies. Another 4-star that was there, Waltez Clark, the running back from Tampa. Allegedly, I read that this past week or a couple of weeks ago, he hit his all-time best in the 100-meter, 10.82. Pretty solid.
Nice. Yeah, for a running back, that's real solid.
That is really solid. But let me put this also into perspective for an almost 200-pound running back.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10.82. Okay.
Yeah, he can move.
Also, exactly. Also was there 3-star Josiah Abdullah, wide receiver, College Park, Woodward Academy. If that rings a bell to anybody, John Hunt is his coach. John Hunt was a former offensive lineman at the University of Florida. So nice. Those are some that were there. So that was good. And a couple of people off the map a little bit, but Enoch Wagnoy, that's the kid from England, 6'8", 315. He has an NFL body, but he's got really good feet because he was a basketball player. Zaire Addison, offensive tackle and guard, top tier after this weekend. He actually said, he quote unquote, DeCastro was the most detail-oriented coach he had ever spoken to.
Interesting.
Oh,
interesting. I like it. I like
phenomenal.
It. Well, hey, I mean,
a lot of
guys that have worked in the NFL tend to be detail oriented. Just saying.
Exactly. So outside of that, we got a couple other people local here to Gainesville, just over there in Newberry. Jarquez Carter, he's interior defensive lineman. Gerald's been talking to him a good bit, struck up a good conversation. And then another legacy player outside of Khalil Jackson, but CJ Ingram. His father's Cornelius Ingram, also known as the Wingspan. But he's led Hawthorne High School to 2 consecutive state championships, the Hawthorne Hornets down there, just 15 minutes down the road from the University of Florida. So a lot of good things come out of there for the following fall.
Nice. You left one out though, and it might be the biggest name of all, which is Caleb Cunningham. He is a 5-star receiver from Mississippi who was there.
Hey, yeah.
And he actually did an interview after the game and said he was really impressed with the way we used our receivers, which kind of made me scratch my head, but hey, but okay. But he also said how impressed he was with one DJ Lagway. And this is the interesting thing. So if you are aware or not aware or whatever the case may be, we have had a lot of trouble attracting high level. Certainly we've gotten some quality guys, and I'm not knocking the kids that are there. We just talked about it. I think there's some really good weapons there. And certainly Trey is high level. But outside of Trey, who, just kicked up to a 5-star in one of the recruiting services before he joined the team in 2023. Otherwise, we haven't had a receiver of that caliber in quite some time. We've had trouble getting that highest level tier receiver to come play for us. Lagway might move the needle on that next year, or this year, if you will, with this year's recruiting class. Guys are going to come want to play with him. That is going to be a thing. I think when you see this offense this year and be able to hopefully get a little more downfield action involved, whether it is Mertz throwing to them or not, just knowing that obviously next year it's Lagway's team, guys are going to want to come in and be a part of that. Lagway's special. He's already showing that. We all thought that. I think there's little doubt in my mind that that's going to be the case when you saw some of the stuff that he's already put on film, even this early on, even at this level. He's got a bright future, and there are receivers that are going to want to be a part of that. So it's going to be very exciting. I think in what our capabilities are going to be to get back to that kind of level of recruitment. And yeah, I think we have a chance to land a big name. Whether or not it's Caleb Cunningham, I don't know. He's still projected very highly to stay in Mississippi. Though it's interesting because he kind of made a comment about how people were saying that they think he's going to stay in the SIP, as he put it. And he's like, I'm not sure why everybody's saying that. And I kind of raised an eyebrow and went, oh, really? Because that made it sound like he ain't staying. So that was very interesting. Very interesting that he said that in this interview. So anyway, we'll see what happens. Right now, he is the number 12 overall player and the second highest rated receiver in the 2025 class. So big time name. Kid looks good. So we'll see what happens. So yeah, that's all I have to add. Otherwise, very good rundown of all the recruits we had in attendance. Cool. I think it was nice to get that many people out, and we've been getting a lot of positive feedback. Not a ton of recruits yet that have committed, but I think that's probably normal for this time of year. If you look back to last year's class, it didn't really start gaining momentum and building until mid to late May, and then June is when it really started to pop. Right, June and July. So I think that's what you should expect. And honestly, I'm not sure you even should expect it. This is probably an important note. It would not surprise me if this year's class built a little later than last year's did, because I think there may be recruits that actually want to see what we look like on the field a little more this year. They may want to see a couple of games from us based on how last season closed out. It would not shock me if there were, I'm not saying we won't get recruits in June and July. We will, but we may not get quite as many. I'm not saying I know that. This is a feeling. This is just an intuition. But don't be shocked if we don't have the same number going into the season that we did last year, and if we don't pick some more up in August, September really timeframe, after we play a couple games and hopefully look good doing it. So we'll see what happens. Sir. All right, moving on. Pride and Sunshine. This is an interesting one for this game. We kind of made mention of it in the walk through the agenda. I think this is a really important section for the spring game for Napier and Florida. Player disposition in spring games can often be very lackadaisical, right? It can, because it's just an exhibition, right? A lot of it's for the fans. That's not the case in this game, right? Not only does Napier put it to be a very game-like situation, but as you mentioned before, there's a reward on the line for winning. So these guys actually care. They are there to play. They are trying. Like it is not just go out there and screw around. Like it is go out there and play your game. You could see guys like they were jumping, diving for balls, trying to break up passes. I saw, God, I can't remember which pass it was, but there was a replay. I can't remember. I really can't. Oh, it was the pass to Boardingham right before they spiked the ball at the end of the game. There were like three guys on the orange team diving into that passing window, trying to bat that ball down to not let it get to Boardingham. And he still completed the pass. It was a nice ball by Mertz, by the way. But like, I mean, those guys were playing. Like they were not out there loafing around. They were getting after it. So that is not the typical thing you see, especially on defense in a spring game. So to that point, I will make the comment that I know there's been a controversy about the timekeeping at the end of the game. So I watched this. I actually didn't think it was that egregious. Now, should they have put 2 seconds back on the clock? No. But for what it's worth, I thought March got the ball spiked in time. I thought he got it spiked before the clock ran out. Like I did. I thought, the ref blew the whistle. He got the hike and he spiked it immediately. And I thought that only took 1 second. Like I thought he was able to do it. Now, if he'd only had 1 second, yeah, I would have agreed. You couldn't have done it. But I thought he got it off in time. I don't think it should have gone back to 2, but I thought he got the spike off in time before the clock expired. So whether it was 2 or 1 or whatever, I didn't think the game was over. Like I thought that was legitimate in my mind. So I do hope, because of the effort by both teams, that the guys on the losing side, quote unquote, did still get something. I hope they really didn't get the beanie weenie dinner that Mertz talked about on the sideline. But I hope they got something. Maybe not the Jays, but maybe they still got to go to dinner, and they just didn't get the Jays or something. I don't know. But I hope they got something, because man, both teams played their hearts out in this game, and it was really cool to see. So that was one of the things that I'll talk about as we talk about the culture here. Just seeing the sidelines, everybody up and congratulating each other when Denson got that pick, right, and came over. Man, guys were just high-fiving and up, and they were all over it. Armstrong's out there hugging dudes, of course, because he's AA. And I just loved it, man. The culture and the camaraderie and the team atmosphere of this group. I mean, to me, if they're faking it, they're doing a hell of a job. That's all I know how to say, man. It looks really genuine. And Lagway showing all kinds of leadership on the sideline, man. Looking like little Mertz over there. I'm just saying. He is picking up on that stuff big time, which what an incredible intangible for him to gain and learn from in this freshman year. I think it's going to do wonders for him. Not that he wasn't already a guy that probably had some of that, or maybe not probably, had shown some of that and had some of that in his character, but to be able to learn from a guy like Mertz, who's clearly shown to be this just very charismatic and very strong leader, to get some of that, bred into you for a year, man, that's just awesome. That's just awesome. So those are my thoughts on Pride of the Sunshine. What you got?
I dig it. I'll take it and I'll run with it. I happen to enjoy. I know some people commented that it could have been an outrage because of Trey had a little sideline outburst in a game last season with an analyst.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I'm telling you right now, I love the exchange between Marshall and Trey on Blue's first possession inside the 20-yard line.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right? You had number 3 versus number 3. Well, in this case, 2 3s were not on the same team. And I love the fact that first was a tight ball, caught it, got enough separation, but I just love the banter back and forth. I love Jason Marshall, after seeing what he came into this program as, what he faded to, and now he's the way he finished last season, and his stock is rising again. I think he's going to have a phenomenal senior season, and he's really going to lead that core corners to do a great job. But love the banter back and forth. Love the fact that he was smacking the ball, talking trash to each other. That was great. This spring game had a much different tone from last spring game. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Much different tone. You said it. Guys were getting after it. Was it the beans and weenies? Was it the filet mignon? Was it the Jays? I don't know. But either way, the tone, I think the main thing I'll boil it down to is urgency. There was urgency there. So that was great. And we did talk about some games last fall. It didn't seem like there was urgency. There was a comment that was made regarding the South Carolina game in the locker room. You're looking around, it's like, okay, all the guys were there. It's like, well, wait a minute, where were they before in the other 8 games of the season? What happened? Or 6 game, whatever the case might
be. I remember.
So,
I remember that comment.
Right?
I think it was South Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, okay, we're locked in. What the hell were we before? Anyways, I digress. I want to read something about Mertz's mentorship. You said it, and I'll continue it. I love what Derek Lagway Sr. said. Right, put out there on Twitter. Graham Mertz, appreciate all the love that you have showed.
Yep.
DJ and our family. We have nothing but love and respect for you and your family. Again, thank you. You just had the national consensus Gatorade Texas High School Player of the Year.
Yeah, every freaking player of the year. But yes, pick an award. He in high school, he pretty much won it.
Right? Highly sought after. We know the pushes by USC and Lincoln Riley at the 11th hour. Everything else there. This kid came in heavily recruited. Now, for people who don't know, Graham Mertz actually went to Wisconsin highly recruited. Now, not National Gatorade Player of the Year, but Graham had a few accolades that made him heavily recruited in the North, as we would say up there. But I really love, and you said it, you can't fake that. You really can't. If they do, they're doing a damn good job, because what DJ Senior just said and tweeted publicly, I feel like is that resounding voice, that echo that's being heard throughout that locker room over and over again about unity, about playing for your fellow brother, about the power of one, the togetherness in one. So that's phenomenal. To that end, I enjoy that AA refers to Ron Roberts as football dad. We're going to refer to him as Papa Ron, whatever the case might be. But AA says that, not a day goes by that he doesn't pick this guy's brain. And he's such a mentor figure to him. And I know we said when this hire was first made, what is that going to do to the dynamic? How's AA going to feel? Is Ron going to come in there as a fascist dictator? And it doesn't seem to be the case. So it's going to be a good thing. Great crowd on Saturday afternoon in the swamp, added to the environment. Afternoon, the fields were there. It was all there. Great to move it back from Thursday night to Saturday day. Loved it. Going back to the end of the game, Billy made the last couple of drives for the blue team challenging because he wanted them to face some adversity, wanted them to go out and win it. And yes, the ball got backed up. There might have been a discrepancy of a second or two back on the clock, but they did what they had to do, threw the ball downfield. They made some plays, and in 22 seconds, Mertz put him in scoring position. I also love the fact when Trey Smack went up there to win the game, AA goes, I don't think so, buddy. I'm going to ice you. And I just, again, people look at that and go, why would you do that? I look at that and go, yeah, bravo, play it out.
Again, very, as much like a real game, despite it being the spring game as you're going to get. Like, I feel like the coaches, the players, it's treated like it as much as you're going to see in any spring game across the country.
Exactly. And so that's my pride section. Loved it, enjoyed it. Again, just I can't say enough about the feels what that meant to see football being played in the orange and blue on Saturday afternoon in the swamp. Phenomenal.
Yeah, man. Absolutely agree. As we talked about at the jump of this thing, it was really fun. So now for our new little section here that we're going to put in for this one, and I don't know, maybe we throw it in down the road. We'll see. See how it goes. Yep. But Gators that growled, what you got?
All right. So Gators that growl. First of all, Pup Howard. And yeah, maybe we don't need dogs. Maybe we need more pups. Dude, what a pickup.
Yeah.
What a pickup.
Yeah.
That's
what a pickup.
6 tackles, 2 pass breakups, in coverage, and covering the line. For most people who don't know, he earned the Wilbur Marshall Award for the most outstanding linebacker this spring. Welcome, Pup Howard. Holy smokes. The pop that he had, the pop that Pup had, the energy that he has, he's a ball hawk. He's an absolute ball hawk. He's going to go to the play. He's going to blow stuff up. He's going to be, you know what? The other word I can think of for him is all-state. He's mayhem. He's going to be mayhem. That'll be good. I like it.
I like mayhem.
Second
That's
up,
good.
Yeah, second up, I'm going to split the I cheated a little bit on you, B. Sorry about that, buddy, but I have to give it up to Ivory and Gums. What a duo at the edge position. Yes, I know people, you're probably thinking, okay, here goes Randy with the edge again, but the edge is where it's at for me on defense as far as causing more of that mayhem as well. They combined for 3 sacks, should have been 4. That's half of Blue sacks. Blue had 6 sacks. You had 2 guys responsible for half of it. Phenomenal. We had a terrible sack deficiency last fall. Those 2 guys, again, and Justice comes back healthy. Hopefully the knee's strong. He's only going to add to that. DJ Lagway. Hey, Mr. DJ, turn the option on. Looked very comfortable, looked very settled, looked very tenured. Cadence was on point. And again, the only procedural penalty that I saw came in the 4th quarter with that close delay game call. They probably could have stretched another second, but it was what it was. But the command that he had, the chatter, the whole game he was talking. He's talking to the O-line. He's talking to receivers. He's talking on the sideline. He's clapping them up. When the team shifts and they come to the sideline, he's dabbing them up, high-fiving them up. He was not just very vocal. That's awesome. Very, very good to see. Sharif Denson, hey, 6 solid tackles and an INT. And I agree with you. He broke on that ball. He wanted the ball. He wanted the ball, period. He wasn't going to let that ball just nestle in and be caught. One of 3 players to earn the Channing Crowder Headhunter Award this spring for his tackling during spring session. Phenomenal.
He did make some nice tackles.
He did. Some WWE style stuff. And the last one I'm going to call out, you said it earlier in your but Jaden Ball, can't say enough about the kid. 12 carries, 77 yards, shifty as all get out. He can run the route tree as a receiver, Napier loves that about him. Napier also loves the fact that as a wildcat quarterback, he also played linebacker. He also played safety. So at his size, being 200 plus pounds, and the way that he's running the ball, I thought he was going to be not as powerful, to be honest, and not as quick, but boy, he proved me wrong. And so I agree with you. Let's see if he gets a couple snaps in the fall and the first team, and then just take it with him. So again, for Jaden, run the ball. But anyways, those are my 5 leaders.
Run the ball. Run the ball.
Yeah, man. That's it.
We're going to have so much fun with some of these names, and I can't wait to see how many DJ references we can pull from songs to talk about Mr. Lagway. But anyway, no, good stuff. So I actually have all the same with the exception of one, which is hilarious. And it was your split. And what's funny is I had Gums in here, but I took him out. And I'll tell you why. It's because he was going against the second team offensive line, which I found to be much less impressive than the first team. And that's why I took him out. So, and I didn't have Ivory, but Ivory was impressive. What's interesting, though, is I have different stats than you do on some of this stuff. So here we go again with the stats. But anyway, so I got a different order, so we'll mix it up. But here we go. So my first one is my different one, and that is Trey Wilson. I had to call out Trey. 8 catches, again, different stat than you had in a different part of this, but 128 yards and a touchdown. My goodness. It's a spring game. But it's a spring game where, as we've talked about, the defense was not laying down. And he went for $128 and a touch on 8 catches. Whoa. Are you kidding me? Like, this kid is going to light up the field this year. I am going to be surprised if he is not an All-American receiver when the year is done. He looks significantly better than he did last year. And as we all know, he was pretty dang good last year. So when you now factor in that he's going to be the number 1 receiver, it will be important that we have somebody to play across from him that is at least somewhat of a threat, or else he's going to get double teamed all season. And that will be a problem. And he may get double teamed all season anyway. And because he's that good. But I'll tell you what, he keeps running routes like he was this weekend, and it ain't going to matter.
Nope.
With his speed and his agility and his quicks, God, his quicks, and factor in that he's now able to run routes that way. Oh my goodness, man. This special talent, really special talent. Can't wait to see what he does. My number 2 here is Mr. Lagway. We talked about it a little earlier. So his stat line that I've got 12 for 21, a buck 73 passing, 2 TDs, and of course the pick. The pick was ill-advised. He's definitely still growing and making steps and doing some stuff that, he's got to learn from and everything else. But having said that, overall, his command of the offense, his command of the game, his understanding of what was going on, and then factor in several of the throws that he made. He made 3 or 4 throws in this game, at least 3 that were absolute dimes that are, really difficult throws to make in any situation. But a couple of them he made while moving. Oh man, are you kidding me? This is some special stuff. And when you see the potential for that combined with the fact that he already seems to have a good command and feel and presence for the game, he's been here 3 months, 4 months.
Yes.
What? Get out of here. Like, that's ridiculous. That shouldn't be possible. You expect somebody to come in at his level and honestly have a huge learning curve. And I'm sure he still does. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he knows everything, far from it. But we were putting some, fairly, it wasn't like we were just using a section of the playbook. He was getting all kinds of stuff out there. He had the RPO out there. He had the regular, pistol formation out there. He wasn't just running one section of things. He was doing the full gamut for the most part, and
Yes.
he's doing all of it, and he's doing it well, and he's handling things. Now, are there still things he's going to have to learn about protections and pre-snap reads and working through the progressions? Of course, but
Yep.
the initial signs are there for him to be pretty next level. And if his learning curve continues to advance at the rate that it's at, man, forget about it. Next season, hold on to your hats. I know we don't want to look forward too far. We still got this season to get through, and I understand that could come with its own pitfalls, and it may. But next season, things could get really good. So we'll see what happens. But moving on, Pup Howard. Now I had Pup at 6 tackles, 3 solo, and 1 pass breakup, not 2, according to the stat line I saw. But I'll take the 2. Sounds good. Sounds good to me. But more importantly, and this is what I want to call out. We had a player who transferred out last season, who missed 14 tackles during the year. But perhaps more importantly than missing the 14 tackles, he had a real problem with not filling the correct gap. Like all the damn time. And it drove me crazy. I could not deal with it. It made me nuts watching Williams miss the gap all the time. Fill the wrong hole. He would go fill a gap, but it would not be the correct gap that he needed to fill. It would be the opposite gap from where the running back was going, or from where he should be going to fill if he was on a blitz. He would go fill where there was a pickup for him on the blitz instead of going to the open gap. It drove me nuts. He did it over and over and over and over again. It's like, how do you not get better at this as the season goes along? If anything, he might have gotten worse. It was amazing how bad he was at it. Now, he is one that has not left and talked smack, so I'm not going to talk too much smack about him other than to say that his performance was underwhelming, to say the least. Boy, did we upgrade from all signs that I can see. This, again, it's a spring game. I understand. But man, this kid looks like he gets it way better than what we were seeing last year. Time will tell and we will see. But it is my guess that Pup Howard is going to start next to Shamar James on the field next year. And I am betting we are going to love the look of that starting linebacker duo on the field. I am excited to see it. So that is what I've got to say about that. My 4th one is Jaden Baugh. As you mentioned, 12 carries, 77 yards, including a long of 25. And, you mentioned the power and the agility and the speed, but man, the shiftiness, those jump cuts, I am just blown away by those. I can't get enough. I just I want to see more. I want to see more, and I hope we get to next year. And I'll leave it at that. And then my last one was going to be Manny Nunnery for the record, but it is not. It is Sharif Denson. As you mentioned, I had him at 2 tackles. You had him at 6. I had him at 2. I don't know how we have that big of a disparity. That's crazy.
That is big. That is big. But yeah, my stat line showed 6. Yeah.
I got 2. So that's wild. 2 tackles, 1 solo, and of course the pick that I already talked about earlier. But more importantly than his stat line to me was what's not in the stat line. And that is he was running step for step in coverage on every single play, with that one exception being where, you had the kind of brackets coverage with Bridges against Trey that got busted, right? That we talked about. That is literally the only time he was not in perfect coverage in this game that I could see. He did not miss a step. He was all over his man the entire game. I was absolutely just impressed beyond belief. One of my biggest hurts in the transfer portal last year was Jaden Hill. After watching this game, I'm not worried. He looked phenomenal. He looked absolutely phenomenal. And not only in coverage, but he came up several times and made stops in the run game out of the backfield. He had a tackle for loss in the back, or I think it was a half tackle for loss in the backfield, but still it was a joint with him and Cersei. But he came up and made a play in the running. I mean, this kid is all over it. He looks fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And to your point, he is an excellent tackler. Now, one of the knocks on Jaden was not the best tackler in the world. Guess what? Not a problem anymore if this is our starting star. So I can't say enough good things about Mr. Denson. Really excited for the growth and steps that he seems to have taken in the offseason. I wasn't sure about him, to be honest. I wasn't sure if he could fill these shoes. It looks like he can fill them, and maybe then some. So really, really good stuff. Excited to see where that goes. So that was a fun little segment, man. I'm glad we added that in.
Dig it.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on, let's wrap this thing up and close it out. Just a quick kind of summary of where I think we are. So one point I really want to make to close this out is, I think one of the things that I've noticed about this team, so we talked a lot about a few different things, but one is the depth of this team. And I think that does a couple things for you. One is the overall talent on this team is clearly higher than it has been in several years, quite frankly. I think you have to go back to 2020 to see a team that was as talented as the one we're dealing with. And frankly, it might even be more talented than that. It just depends on the position you look at. But that does 2 things for you when you look at the ability of this team to succeed. One, it raises the ceiling, right? It raises the potential for what you can do right at the top. But more importantly, when you look at the depth, it raises the floor. And that's going to be really important with the schedule that we're up against, right? Despite having 5 starters, as you mentioned, and 7 players that will see the field next season, not on the field in this game, we still showed significant improvement in multiple areas on both sides of the ball. This shows that our good can be better than it was, but perhaps even more importantly, that even when we slip up and don't play our best, it will not be nearly as costly as it was last year. And that's the floor piece that I'm talking about. When our guys that are coming in to play backups or that have to come in to fill an injury, hopefully not near as often as we did last year, please. But, it's liable to happen at least at some point. It's, going to happen to an extent, just hopefully, again, not as much. When we get that second team player in, or that rotational player in, I don't even want to say second team, that rotational player in, the drop off is just not near as significant as it has been in the past few years. That really matters when you start talking about, again, the floor and what that looks like. And that's really, really important when you talk about what the team ends up being capable of doing, again, especially against this schedule. So that's really the only point I want to make in all of this, is just seeing that depth on display and seeing that talent kind of spread out more across the team and not just in certain pockets was really great to see. I mean, there's not a position room on the team that I'm like, I don't know about that one. O-line is still a question mark, but it's not a question mark like I'm worried. It's a question mark like I don't know fully where some of the weaknesses might end up being. Certainly looks like the interior could be a question mark as far as maybe it's not as good as we want it to be, but it also has time to get better. So I think, and again, we didn't have starters that are going to play, and we have backups that are better in that area. So like I could go on, but the point is that depth and that dispersion of talent across that depth is just at such a higher level than we've seen it in a really long time. And that's a credit to Napier's recruiting. That's a credit to the transfer portal acquisitions that we have had, and a credit to what he's been able to build across this team. So for all the flack that he's gotten, and some of it's deserved, from a talent building standpoint, this team's in a really good place, and I'm really happy to see it. So that's my thoughts on where we're at coming out of the spring. What do you got?
I dig it. Believe it or not, along the same lines. But the other thing too that I will say is remember, we're going into season 3. We're going into
Yep.
season 3. We're going into the third fall. We're going into now a fall where the staff is in place.
The system is built.
Is built, right? The system is built. So that's taken care of. All these check boxes that Napier had as far as the foundation, the staffing, the support, the logistics, the operations, the mission control, the whatever you want to call it, it's done, right? The depth, to your point, we're deeper. The talent, it's talentier. No, that was terrible. Seriously, the talent is there, right? It's gotten more. It's gotten better. The age, we're older, and what does that usually yield? Experience, and experience in the sense of the reps, the confidence. What it does? 6 inches between the ears. That's phenomenal. If all of these, and again, people, I know we sound like we're a bunch of homers here, but at the end of the day, if all these things come together, and regardless of the season, regardless of the schedule, regardless of the gauntlet that we're about to face this fall, and arguably the toughest Power 5 schedule in the nation.
Oh, that's not arguable. I would make an argument it's the toughest Power 5 schedule ever.
Period. Fair. Okay. If we can just get back to having some fun and executing at a very high level, the rest will take care of itself. The rest should take care of itself. The depth that we have at running back, I'm not worried about running back. The depth that we have at wide receiver, we made a couple comments at wide receiver. We know that WR1 is none other than Tricky Trey, no problem. But Shamir DK and Graham know each other like almost the back of their hand. There's familiarity there. We still have Burke. Okay, we'll see what happens with Mizell and Gene. We'll see. Either way, there's weapons. There's people to be used. Don't forget about the tight end spot. Don't forget about Arliss. Don't forget about Hansen. There are weapons there. It is legit. And again, I actually kind of envy the position that Napier and Callaway are in to be able to play with some of these chess pieces and move them around that field. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be exciting. So outside of that, those are my closing thoughts, B. And if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and sign us off.
Only other thing I would say is that we are going to do our next one. We're going to go through and kind of do a breakdown of the schedule for next year and give our thoughts on what our predictions are, not for whether or not we think we will win, but or lose necessarily, or give our game predictions. I guess I should say we'll do that in our season preview. But we're gonna kind of take a look what Florida looks like, obviously, now that we've kind of seen the spring and everything else, and we'll look at our opponents, what's changed with them versus last year's team, look at their records from last year. Of course, we know our record from last year, but not just the record, but what the team is built like. and what changes each team has had, and kind of give our thoughts on what the chances are, if you will, that we come away with a win or a loss in each of those games. So we're just going to do a game by game breakdown of that, kind of looking at those teams a little more in depth than we would in just the season preview. It's not necessarily our predictions for whether or not we think we will win or lose, just a more kind of fact-based breakdown analysis of, okay, here's what we think the chances are that we can win, or unfortunately in some cases can't win. Right,
Yeah.
we're going to kind of assign, I don't know if it'll be a percentage value yet, or a 1 to 10, or we haven't fully discussed that, but that'll be in 3 weeks from this week, probably a little earlier in the week. We were a little late recording this one because of Randy's vocal situation, as we alluded to at the beginning, but we'll probably record that, a little earlier in the week, 3 weeks from now. So that is the next pod. But yeah, other than that, go ahead, take us out.
Awesome. Great, B. Great. Well, hey, wherever you are, wherever you might be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we will see you around Gator Nation.